In this video, we are going to cover the TAR. That stands for Transfusion Administration Record. This is going to be where we would chart that we've given blood, or if we had to give RhoGAM, this is also where you'd chart. So if we recall from our training sessions, the TAR can only be signed off on Citrix. It is a same system, but it is a more encrypted site. So in order to access that, we would minimize our page and we would go to the desktop where it says Expanse Citrix. This would then launch this screen. We would log in with the same login for the other system, and once we got here, we would open the test. During live, we will no longer be opening tests because we would now be in live. This will launch a very similar screen, which is the one you're seeing now. The system is exactly the same. It's just a different web browser and a different encryption, and it is what is going to be used for now until the blood bank has FDA approval to use the web version. So from here, I would click my EDM Tracker, and everything will show up exactly the same. The big difference is, as you can tell, is there's multiple windows every time you open something in Citrix, which is one of the reasons we have chosen not to use it. So on here, I would find my patient that is getting the blood transfusion. So for this scenario, we're going to go to pod 2, and we're going to use the patient test sitter 1. If you were to go to the TAR in the other version and click on it to open it, it would actually tell you that the TAR is not supported in the web browser. That would be a very simple way to know that you are not in the correct system. In this case, for this patient today, we are in the correct system, so I would highlight my patient by clicking the name so I don't open anything else. I would have known blood was ordered because I would have seen a red check mark in blood bank that will turn green once the blood bank processes the order or receives a type-in screen if one is needed. I would then see my TAR column, and once the blood is ready for us to pick up from the blood bank, you will see ready. You now no longer have to call the blood bank, as this message means the blood is ready for someone to come pick up. The first thing you have to do, though, before you send someone, is put in a blood pickup order. So what I would do is, if I wanted to see more information, I could click this and it would tell me I have a ready status. My product is leukocyte reduced RBC, so I could go to the TAR to get more information, or I could put in my order first so that my blood can be picked up. You would do this by opening the patient's chart. You would then click the Orders tab, and you would click New Orders. At this point, you would have had a physician signed up for the patient, so we're going to pretend today that Dr. Day is an ER physician. We would click Clinical Pathway and Protocol and hit OK. This is going to allow us to put in the blood product pickup order, and we will then be able to go pick up our blood. So we would click the blood product pickup order and hit next and save it. It's going to be stat because we are in the emergency room, and you're going to click that red edit that pops up. You will then answer the questions like we do now. So a consent form was completed, the product to be transfused. We can use our little mouse or we can hit F9, and I'm going to pick the leukocyte red cells. You also have the option for any of these other products. So for example, RhoGAM is an option. So we're going to click that, and then you're going to click the number of units you're going to transfuse, which would be 1 at a time unless you're doing a massive transfusion protocol. The start time is going to be now. So you can enter N, and you're going to submit this order. Now that that order is there, we see it's in a ordered status. We're going to minimize our screen, and we're going to wait until the status on our TAR says issued. Once it is issued, we know that the person who went to pick up the blood was handed the blood and should be on their way back. So in the meantime, you could be setting up and getting everything ready, including your first set of vitals, to go as soon as the blood comes. We could now see that under the TAR column, our blood is listed as issued, which once again means it was handed to the person that went to pick it up, and we can now start our transfusion. What we would do is we would click in the TAR box and we would open the TAR. The one important thing you also want to make sure is that you know how long the doctor wants the transfusion over. It is now listed in the order, so you no longer have to ask. The doctor is required to enter it during his order for the blood. You would open the chart. You would be able to see under orders. You would go to history so that you can see the order history. And by clicking on the order, we can see here, it would tell us that they want to transfuse the unit over 4 hours. They have the option of 1, 2, 3, or 4 hours. So it is important to know that so that you can set up your transfusion accordingly. So now I'm just going to exit because I'm in Citrix and everything opens up in boxes. I can just exit this and I can now open up my TAR. I'm going to click Go to TAR and I'm just going to make this screen bigger so nothing confuses me. Now here I can see that my unit is in an issued status. It's a leukocyte reduced red blood cell and it's O positive and there's no issue comments that they put in. So on here, I'm going to first verify. This is where you're going to need someone to co-sign with you. So you would hit verify, another nurse would come in, and they would co-sign the transfusion. You are verifying on your checklist all of these items, so you would check them as you go. In the future, we are going to be moving to barcode scanning, which we would barcode the patient's bracelet and the unit of blood. But for right now, this is going to be the process we're using. I would then enter as the co-signer and I would enter my PIN. Your PIN will first be set up when you log into the EMR. So when you first access your EMR, you will have the ability to enter your password that you use to get into the system, and it's going to ask you to enter a 4-digit PIN and then verify the 4-digit PIN. This PIN does not have to be changed, and it will be a 4-digit number that you choose that you will use to co-sign things such as blood, meds, etc. The theory is so you don't have to enter a longer password, it's your personal PIN. Now, once I've entered my PIN, I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to allow you to click verify. You don't want to hit verify and begin because otherwise it will give you an error because you didn't enter vitals. So I'm going to hit verify. The status of my blood now switches to verified, and I could now hit begin. I would hit begin, and it's going to tell me pre-transfusion vitals must be recorded before beginning the transfusion. This is the same message you would have gotten in the other screen had you hit verified and begin. So the system tells you that you're missing something. So I'm going to hit doc vitals, and on here I'm just going to enter my vitals for the patient. And then you're just going to hit save and exit. The nice part once again is that this option also has the add note feature. If I clicked to add a note here, it would take me to my nurse note section and I could type in a note. If I put in a note, you will see on my screen a little notepad that says I put in a note, and the nice part is you can see here on the side the note tab is highlighted in red. It puts the note in both sections so you don't have to go in and out of assessments to see these different things, which is a very nice feature of the system. Although the TAR, if you guys recall us telling you previously, the vital signs stay in the TAR, meaning they don't go over to your work list, but you can still see them in the other web version, or if you're in this, you can still see them in your vital sign panel, which if you see on the side here is right here. It will transcribe there. It's just that if you have an overdue vital sign, you want to re-enter it on the work list so it doesn't look like your vital signs are overdue. And we will go through that step at the end. So I'm going to hit save and exit because I'm done with my vitals, and now I'm going to hit begin. And now I will not get a warning because I did my vitals. All you have to do here is enter the begin date and time. You can do N for now because you should be doing this in real time, and it's going to put in everything else for you. The 350 container volume, which was set by the blood bank, and right now there's 0 intake because we're starting it, and you're just going to hit save. You can see here that it's now in a transfusion status, and the nice part is if I go back to my tracker, I can see that my unit's being transfused and that I have vitals due at 9:44. It places the clock 15 minutes once you start the transfusion for your post 15-minute transfusion vitals. So now, if it were 9:44, I would go back into my TAR. If it was still too early, remember, you're staying at the patient's bedside for the first 15 minutes. You could continue to go on and do anything else. You can chart on another patient. You could update this patient's chart. Everything we do in this Citrix system translates over to our other system because it's all the same system. They're just on different web browsers. So now I'm going to pretend that it's my 15 minutes. I'm going to click back on the TAR and go to TAR. On here, I have a couple of options. If my patient was having a reaction, you would hit doc reaction, and you would want to check the required question. There's a transfusion reaction. What kind of reaction is the patient having? We'll say hives, and I would have entered vitals here. I'm going to just keep it short on this part so you guys know that you would enter all your vitals. You're going to hit save and exit, and this is now going to put a red icon, you see here, a reaction, on your tracker, and in the background this is sending a message to blood bank, and it is putting in orders automatically on the patient for a transfusion reaction. So you would be able to go over to mobile phlebotomy and draw your labs and send them. At the same time, you would want to click hold and put this unit on hold. All you would do is hit end for now, because we're doing this in real time, and the comment would be hives. That's why I'm putting it on hold. The other important question is it's asking you what the container volume is. So what it's asking is how much blood is still left. So we'll say 340 because we had just started the transfusion, and hit save, and then now your unit's going to go into a hold status. You want to put the unit on hold until you know for sure that you're either going to continue the transfusion or end it, because once you end it, you can no longer start that blood product again. The blood bank would have called us and said, please send the unit back and end the transfusion, or sometimes if it's hives, they might say, we're going to give Benadryl. The doctor will put in the order for Benadryl, and we'll go ahead and continue. So once I get that phone call that it's good to go, I would hit resume. I would enter N again for now, and I would hit Y. Can restart per blood bank and MD. And then the last thing I would want to enter is what is the container volume, which should be 340 because that's what we left it off at. And now you're going to hit save, and it's going to start the transfusion again. This would only be done if it's a reaction. If the patient had had no reaction, at the 15-minute mark, you would have hit doc vitals again. You would have done your vital signs 15 minutes post starting the transfusion. You would have entered them all, hit save and exit, and then, like I said, if they had no reaction at the very end, once it's all done, you would just hit end. You would enter now, because that's going to put in your date and time, because we're doing this in real time, and you're once again going to enter the container volume. If it is a completely the end of the transfusion, this should be 0. What this means is you entered all of the blood product, so you infused everything. So, and it's going to tell you that the total intake was 350 because that's what we started off with, and that's going to go over to your Ino Panel. So you would hit save, and your unit now goes to transfused. It's done. And I can see here by going onto my tracker that I am now transfused. If I had another unit of blood, you would have seen those little red lines with ready again, and you would start the process from the beginning. You'd put in a blood pickup order, wait until it's issued. You're going to verify again, get your vitals, and start. Very simple process. So what I want to show you is that although our vitals are in the TAR and they don't go over to our work list, if I go to the vital sign panel, whether I'm in this version or the web, it still looks the same. I can see all my vitals from my TAR, so I can still have access to them. I also can see them if I go into the patient's blood bank history. So I could click blood bank here, or I could go to the blood bank panel, and I'll show you on the tracker by clicking the little icon. It will take me to the same screen, because remember, the system has multiple ways to getting to the same place. It's just user preference. So on here, I can click this blood bank history. This will pull up all of the information we just documented in the TAR, so you can have view to it even if you go back to the web version. If for some reason you forget and you stay in Citrix, especially in the beginning, there's no harm. It's still documenting the same, but we should ideally go back to the other system once we're done. So what we would do here is we could now go to our work list, and we would want to transcribe and see when our vitals are due. So for example, my patient, doesn't have vitals due, but if they did, I could then just click the vital tab, and I could just hit document and document those last set of vitals I just got with my blood transfusion, so that my screen would update and I would have a fresh set of vitals in there and they wouldn't be overdue. You would only do this if you had vitals that happened to be due at the same time and you were already doing the transfusion. Otherwise, there's no reason to enter them. And like I said, everything communicates. So if I go back to my show button for vital signs, I would now be able to see my next set of vitals I just entered. So everything tracks, it's just might not be in the same area. And I can see the ones I just entered here. So what I would do now is I would go look at my Ino panel, because this is a show button, and I can see here that all of my blood came over to my Ino panel, because it does track it automatically for you, anything you do for intake. So meaning if it's IV fluids or blood products, they come over to your Ino. You no longer have to worry about documenting them. And that would be all I would have to do for my TAR. Once you're done transfusing your unit, that's it. There's no more going back and entering magic arrow keys and putting anything in. It now marks it as transfused and you are all set to go.